We keep things rolling here on the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, and it has been a jam-packed edition here on the Sports Cubicle. It's been a busy week on WCPT 820 AM and Heartland Signal, and we appreciate all the hard work done by all the producer, board ops, hosts, and management behind the scenes in a busy week here in Chicago. And we appreciate each and every one of you listening to us here on the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, with the one, the only, the marvelous one, Dan Marver, and hopefully we are keeping you company. And one of these stories that I want to hit on is a good vibes story. And this has to deal with the record-shattering numbers that the WNBA has been seeing this season. This comes to us from Anthony Krupe from Sportico. Caitlin Clark's WNBA All-Star debut shatters all-time ratings record. The WNBA's season-long surge in popularity shows no signs of abating, as the 2024 All-Star Game left the previous ratings record in the dust. According to Nielsen, live plus same-day data, Sunday night's exhibition, which was pitted rookie stars Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese against the U.S. women's national team, averaged 3.44 million viewers on ABC, up 139%. Versus the previous high water mark set in 2003, which was 1.44 million. And obviously, Team WNBA 117-109 is now the third most watched outing in league history. The former Iowa standout has been instrumental in supersizing the league's TV deliveries. Since Clark's first suited up for the Indiana Fever back in May, the guard has appeared in 15 of the league's highest-rated 17 telecasts, including each of the top 10. And the article goes on with more in detail, and I wanted to just bring this up. So check out the entire article. Caitlin Clark's WNBA All-Star debut shatters all-time ratings record. And it is something that we've mentioned on the show just today on this edition about Angel Reese partnering with Reese's Cup to have Reese's Pieces and the growth of this sport. Marvelous. You are somebody who's been a big advocate of women's basketball over the years, and how much has it surprised you? How much has it given you joy to see that women's college basketball and now the WNBA are really not only growing but holding on to their audience?
Well, they're linked at the hip because of last season was so outstanding in terms of the ratings for the college NCAA tournament. And because of that, it spilled over to the WNBA with the rookies that came in. And I was just interested to see how long it would go on. In fact, I think that Clark has performed better in the WNBA than I anticipated. I thought that I knew that she was a great shooter and a great passer. But I thought that the physicality might be a problem for her. But I guess when you're not in the paint too much, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's like Curry. I mean, Curry doesn't have great physicality in the men's side. So I would make that comparison, not that it's exactly the same, but you know what I mean. In terms of that, I mean, obviously I like the fact that it generates interest all the way down the line in terms of you'll get more, I can testify, you'll get more kids trying out for high school basketball, girls, than you did before because of this. So in addition to the ratings, there is an influx of interest to participate as well, so that you might be able to hopefully make, $9 million with a shoe company endorsement when you go to college.
And it goes to your point, right? Like the kids are able to go in, and I think this is one of those things where women's college basketball has always been healthy because they've stayed the 4 years always. And now we're starting to see the men's side, the NIL, whether it's 1 season, 2 season for 2 different teams, that they're staying in college, at least for the other sports until you're able to make the crazy amount of top 5 money. But they have been built on the back of a lot of stars before them. And I know we've always talked about Leslie and Miller and Parker and everybody before them, but the league is full of stars now, whether it's Brianna, whether it's Plum, whether it's Sabrina, whether it's, you name it, from Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and Asia Wilson. And the league has done a great job of putting its stars in a platform, whether it's ABC, ESPN, and highlighting them as people But on top of it, the teams are good. And it's teams that are playing in New York, that are playing in Las Vegas, that are playing in these major cities that are able to bring a lot of eyes to them. And to your point, has it also been a benefit that the WNBA and the NBA, not necessarily as leagues, but the players themselves support each other, kind of raises each one in the eyes of the other's fan base?
In terms of supporting each other, you can look at the Reese Clark thing as more of a competitive thing than helping each other. They got along when they played together, but they didn't seem to be BFF when they were in college, and even in the pros, there was a, "Oops, I'm sorry, I thought that was the ball, but that was your face that I blocked."
Now, what do you think
kind of thing, you know?
But what do you think about NBA players and WNBA players supporting each other and the cross promotion of fan bases?
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's very good. Why not? I mean, they have nothing to lose. Obviously, the NBA players are, shall I say, well paid, and they have no reason not to support their female brethren, if that's not a contradiction of terms. And so they should. I think that's more important than making a speech like Steve Kerr made at DNC. I think that supporting the WNBA is even more important.
and there is something to what it means to bring a spotlight when somebody with the voice of, from Steve Kerr on the bench to LeBron James to Steph Curry having those commercials with Candace Parker. It takes community for everything to grow. So I'm with you. I think there is something to when you hear the prominent voices coming up and stepping up, how much it lifts all ships in the sea. So shout out to the WNBA. They've gone through a lot of tough times, and they've gone through a lot of adversity, and they've gone through a lot of bad talk and bad faith actors, and somehow they found their way on this side of it. So and it helps when you have supreme top tier athletes doing their thing. So an interesting story, but we want to know your thoughts. What do you think about the record setting debuts and TV ratings we are seeing from Caitlin Clark, from Angel Reese, and all the stars of the WNBA? Let us know. We're on Twitter at Sports Cubicle TV, of course on YouTube at the Sports Cubicle Sports from the Couch. Check us out over at Heartland Signal WCPT 820 here on the Sports Cubicle. I'm your host, Mike Mercado, with the marvelous one, Dan Marver. Marvelous, another story that has hit the waiver wire, or newswire in this case, is some moves going on from the Chicago Cubs. Here on the Sports Cubicle, I'm your host, Mike Mercado. He's the marvelous one, Dan Marver. Hector Neris is no longer a Cub. Marvelous, go ahead and unload on the craziness that's been happening over at Wrigley Field the last few weeks as September is upon us, and they are just dying for the Braves to fall apart and try to get that last wild card. Your thoughts on the Cubs the last few days?
Well, in terms of Neris, it was the $9 million contract that did him in. They weren't going to maintain that because he was an inconsistent closer, even though he wasn't supposed to be the closer because of Elzolai. But that's history now. So I think, obviously they can use these younger arms in the closing spot, and they should be able to get by, although, there is a high wire act, seems like, for all of them. And, so that's, and now we're talking about maybe looking for 2025, like they keep saying. They're not just talking about this year, talking about next year with the Paredes deal, and which was the only major deal that they essentially made. And so I thought that was a good move. And, Morel will do fine in the Dome. He seems to be quite comfortable hitting home runs there and striking out. So I think that in terms of that move, that was good. The Neris move was at first, oh my goodness, and then you dig a little deeper and you see that it makes sense because they weren't going to eat that salary. In terms of what's happening now, they're in the middle of 18 games against sub-500 teams. They've managed to sort of win a series here in Cleveland, win a series maybe against Detroit, as we're talking right now, who knows. And then they go to Miami and, they have Washington and Pittsburgh twice. So this is the point, if you're going to have any hope, they've got to come out post-Labor Day, in the mix as four teams, within 4 games of the third spot. And that third spot is a whole new ball game, so to speak, no pun intended, because when there were just two, a lot of this talk would be nonsense because they wouldn't be able to catch, one of the other teams, be it Atlanta, or what have you, Mets, Cincinnati, San Francisco. But there's a whole bunch for that third spot, so there's still hope. And like I say, just don't hope they get down to the Cincinnati series when Suzuki drops a fly ball to cost they lose out by one game.
Too soon. But, Too soon.
The Cubs, but obviously, pre-2016, it was like wait till next year. But now there's kind of a new attitude. It's got to be this year. There's still hope, and as long as they're mathematically in it. I think one of the announcers, the Shade or somebody said, well, now they're going to be, mathematically in it longer. And then they'll eventually be eliminated. But it's okay. I mean, at least they weren't eliminated from the playoffs before Labor Day. Hello.
Whoops. I wonder what team. Listen, Paul and Devin already have had a long week. We don't need to be adding on to it.
Okay.
But, Marver, let me ask you this. Friend of the show, Rich Eberwine, a awesome mind in baseball for Cubby's Crib, does some awesome work here at Heartland Signal. He says these are the biggest things they need. A starting pitcher, a bat at catcher, and a power bat. Somebody who can lift the offense, and obviously the biggest need, a closer. The biggest three being the closer, a starting pitcher, and a catcher that can start over Amaya. Is he on point with that's the biggest need this Cubs team needs to be a real contender next season?
You can develop a closer, Alzolay, or for just check this out. Kimbrel and Chapman are still in the league.
I know, that's crazy.
So I mean, those were two of the renter relievers they had. So I mean, it's okay. They could do another renter reliever. It's fine, but. It seems like all you need is somebody that can heave it in the upper 90s and can threaten with an off speed or even some fancy pitch like a splitter or a dandy curve. So I mean, they do have some of that in the young arms that are on the team right now, and the bullpen. And the bullpen, by the way, has had a sub 2.00 ERA despite some of their foibles in the last 6 weeks or so. So they've been pretty good. And you ask, why do they have a barely flirting with 500 when the starters have for the most part been outstanding and the relievers have been outstanding? It almost is counterintuitive, isn't it? And the offense has been sputtering, but Bellinger's come back to life. Hap is Hap, and the Paredes will. If they had the old rules for Paredes, they'd have everybody standing between second and third now, including the outfield and the infield. I mean, they might as well put one of those yellow ropes between second and first. His batting stance says, "I'm pulling the ball, thank you."
Yeah, no kidding.
Which is okay. But this isn't, it is an easier home run park than most, but it isn't the Tampa bandbox. So we'll see how that goes. I think they've got him long term. Their infield's pretty well set, and I was advocating for a catcher. I think they might have been trying to get Neris out in a deal, perhaps for a more offensively minded catcher. Maya has been okay, and then so he's improved a bit. And they just haven't had a decent backup that can create a home run, but yesterday. So, I mean, they do get some offense out of there, a little bit more than they have. Same with Crow Armstrong. He's a threat, when he bunts the ball straight to the second baseman to beat it out, in addition to his shall I say, laissez-faire center field. I mean, it almost seems to me as though how he's so casual, he's going to eventually drop one in. It's like looks the other way and catches the ball. But it's worked out okay so far. They've been locked into this lineup, so I feel a little bad for Bodie.
Oh,
and for it doesn't get to play much, and our favorite baseball player from Palatine hasn't gotten to play much either of late. Talkman, but so they've been locked into that lineup. I guess that's what council is getting his $10 zillion for, to make those decisions. So God bless them. But I think they'll fall short. I think it's too much of a hill to climb, too many teams to pass. And after this little spurt here, it comes back to reality because they have the Yankees and the Dodgers yet, among others. So in September. So we'll see. But hopefully they're building now for the future because that division is winnable. I've been surprised at how well Milwaukee did, as well as St. Louis for that matter, and Pittsburgh seems to be improving a little bit. So they gotta keep it up because this so-called weak division isn't as weak as they thought.
I think that's hitting a nail on the head is that somehow Milwaukee keeps finding a way to win. St. Louis is trying to get themselves back to what St. Louis is known for. Paul Skeens is a great pitcher for Pittsburgh, and Cincinnati has Ellie, and they have some talent on that team. So if you're the Cubs, the answer might be as simple as you were trying to get Logan O'Hoppe this past trade deadline. Go and get him. Go and try to get that arm in Corbin Burns, depending on what happens with Baltimore in their playoff run. And then you have to decide who you're going to keep. Who of these prospects are you keeping? Your infield is pretty set. Your outfield is pretty set. You have a lot of contracts that you have to pay. So you have to make smart decisions, and you have to be willing to let go of these prospects that you have so much love for, that you're beholden upon to keep because they are your guys. They have a lot of tough decisions to make. Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins, with a contract looming on them, have a lot of decisions to be made. But it has been a very, very frustrating Cubs season when it comes to seeing the ups and downs of this team. But marvelous. We'll keep an eye on it and see what they do heading into the last few weeks past Labor Day to finish off August and start September. But we want to know your thoughts. How do you think the Chicago Cubs are going to handle the last few weeks of the MLB season, and how will they attack this offseason? Let us know your thoughts. We're on Twitter at Sports Cubicle TV. Subscribe to us. Leave us a comment down here on the YouTube channel at the Sports Cubicle Sports from the Couch. Of course, check us out over at Heartland Signal, WCPT 820. For the marvelous one, Dan Marver, I'm Mike Mercado. You're listening to the Sports Cubicle on WCPT 820, Heartland Signal.